Welcome to another exercise for the workbook Statistics. This time I'm going to talk about measures of central tendency and, well, alternative ways of how to calculate them. To do this, we have here a data set on ages for different bottles of whiskey, and that's our data set. What we should do with this is first off build the frequency table, and then calculate the mode, the median, and the arithmetic mean. So we're going to start with the frequency table, but before we actually get there, we do some preliminary work which we're going to use later on. So we're going to start by copying this data set and then ordering it in an ascending fashion. So in other words, we're going to order this in a way that it starts with the smallest values, have all the smallest values, and then it always increases until we're finished and we have all the values present in the data set ordered here from smallest to largest value. This we're going to need, well, first off in the construction of our frequency table, but later on in particular when we're going to calculate the median. So let's start with part A with the frequency table. I'm going to build this based on this ordered data set. So here I'm going to start by simply first off make a column in which I'm going to write all the different values used in the data set. That's my first column on the values. Let's see here the different values present in my data set. Then I'm going to count how often I find them in my data set. For example, the 12 I have 3 times, whereas the 15 and the 18 I only have once. That's the next column. That's about the absolute frequencies. Then I'm going to add up all the absolute frequencies, or more or less I'm calculating the number of observations, and I'm going to divide each of the absolute frequencies by the number of observations. So here I'm going to divide with the 9 observations, 3 by 9, 1 by 9, 1 by 9, and down here 2 by 9, giving me these results, these relative frequencies. And finally, for the cumulated relative frequencies, I'm going to add up step by step all the relative frequencies. So I'm going to start with the 1/3. I'm going to add 0.111, so giving me here, first off, 1/3, then 0.444 plus 0.111, giving me 0.555, so forth, always adding what I have on the left. If I'm unsure whether I did this correctly, I can either add up all the relative frequencies, and in the end I will get 1 or 100%, or I can check out the last value in my column on the cumulated relative frequencies, because here I always need to get 1 or 100% as well. And well, that's already my frequency table. So I can continue with the next part, with the mode, where I'm going to use this frequency table I just determined. Therefore, I'm just going to copy it. Here the mode, that's simply the value which has the highest absolute or relative frequency. So if I'm going to check this, well, highest absolute and relative frequency, that's the 12. So here, my mode is 12. In this case, it's unique, but well, not necessarily has to be. It could be that there are situations where you get like more than one mode. That's about it, the mode. So let's continue with the median. For the median, we're going to use the ordered data set. We're not going to use the frequency table. The frequency table you would usually use if you work with classified data and you want to calculate the median or the arithmetic mean. Here we're going to do this first with the ordered data set. And for the median, you always have to decide first which of the 2 formulas there are you going to use. This depends on whether you have an even or an odd number of observations. Here we have 9 observations, so we have an odd number of observations, meaning we're going to take the second of the 2 formulas. For this, I have to calculate the 1/2 times n plus 1, n being 9, so 1/2 times 10 gives me 5. So I have to look up the 5th observation in my data set. This 5th observation will be my median. So 5th observation is the 18 here. If we look closely, we see there's like 4 on the left, 4 on the right. So it's the value exactly in the middle. And that's always the case if you have an odd number of observations. That's the value in the middle, which gives you the median. So here it's 18, and we're finished with part C. So we can continue with the final part on the arithmetic mean. The standard version for the arithmetic mean also would use the ordered data set, and it would simply continue by using this formula, meaning we're going to add up all the different observations. So we're going to add up 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 15 and so forth, and then dividing it by the number of observations. So 9 observations, we're going to divide by 9, giving me an average of 18.11. That's a classical version for the arithmetic mean, but we can also use 2 alternatives, which might make calculation a bit shorter depending on the data set you're actually using. So let's have a look at those 2 alternatives as well. So for the first alternative, we're going to refer to the frequency table, and in particular to the column on values and on absolute frequencies. So what we are calculating here, this alternative 1, is simply this formula, which means absolute frequency, Ni, times value, Ai. And we're going to do this for all of the different rows in the frequency table. And then we're going to add up all of this. That's the sum sign here. Once we did this, we're going to divide this by the number of observations. So it will look like this. We have 3 times 12, 1 times 15. Well, I'm leaving the 1 times in those cases. And this is already a little bit smaller than the one before. So this formula actually makes sense if you have a lot of observations, especially if you have a lot of values with relatively high frequencies different from 1. So this can shorten the calculation significantly. And well, if we do this, we get exactly the same result. Of course, we get the same result as with the version before. The same also holds for the second alternative. We're going to take a look at the next slide. This will also give us the same result as the other 2. So for the second one, we are also going to use the frequency table, but we're going to use this formula here. This formula means we're going to take the relative frequencies and multiply them with the values. So we're going to multiply this with the 12, this with the 15, so forth, and then going to add up all of this. At this point, we do not have to divide by the number of observations anymore, because the relative frequencies already have been divided by the number of observations. So here, simply relative frequency times value, relative frequency times value, so forth, everything of this added up, giving us again, as I said, 18.11, so the same result as in the 1 examples before, 1 or 2 alternatives before. So yeah, that's about it. That's 2 alternatives for the calculation of the arithmetic mean. As I mentioned, the 2 alternatives as compared to the original version usually make sense if you have a lot of observations with higher frequencies, so that you actually save a lot of time by using this shortened version. Well, that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this session on measures of central tendency. I say goodbye and see you next time.